So I'll step in to talk about pivoting. Second time, yeah. And some new faces today, so I'll give a proper introduction to who I am. So I'm Vardnin, I'm also a student like many of you guys at the University of Manchester. But I had some cool work experience prior to uni and during uni. I was actually one of the world's youngest venture capitalists when I was 19. Went into a small venture capital firm who now has 4 unicorn companies, and then ended up working part-time and full-time during my studies for Antler, which is now the world's biggest venture capital firm and startup generator. And alongside a lot of work in product management, and also this exercise where I emailed and rang up all the different product managers from all the big tech companies just to learn more about how do you actually build products that could become a unicorn one day. So that's just to say that I'm not just a random dude talking about pivoting that just learned something on YouTube yesterday, even though I learned something on YouTube yesterday as well. So pivoting, okay. Then I'm going to cover 3 things. What the heck is pivoting? Why you maybe should pivot, and when you should pivot. And it's all related to the concept of product market fit. So the first thing is, well, we can go very academically into the definition, but it basically means changing your idea to find product market fit. So changing your idea as you go and try to find something that people actually want and I could pay for, right? And I think like a more important thing to notice is that it's not this very big moment in your product life cycle. It's not like I'm going to change my idea from this thing to this completely different thing and lose all my previous work. It's a very lightweight thing you basically do all the time. You have an idea and you need to find the best way to hit that customer segment, like the other guy talked about. You might try to find your niche, like Tesla did, and just these small iterations is actually what pivoting is. It's not really that very big moment in time of your startup. I give 2 examples. The first one is Slack that they all use for AME, and Slack was actually a game previously. It's not a chat tool at all. It was actually I think it was a computer game. But then they started to lose revenue. They couldn't grow it any further. But one interesting thing about that game was they had this chat tool, and people loved that tool and started to use it like more frequently than like being engaged with the game itself. And then Slack thought, okay, could we spin out that very small feature of Slack into its own company? And that's what I did, and now became quite huge, right? And that's like taking something existing from the product and realize what users actually engage with, and focusing more on that instead. And then you have Segment. I don't know if you heard about Segment. So Segment is a company that's funded by this famous accelerator called Y Combinator, and now it's worth billions of dollars. But Segment, the founders behind Segment, actually started out doing a cool thing that most of you probably have thought about. When you're in a lecture, you always try to like when you're in a lecture, you're not always sure what the lecturer talks about. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying now, but you're not really sure what the lecturer talks about sometimes. If you're on an economics lecture, on a physics lecture. So Segment, the people behind Segment, wanted to make a tool that would allow students to tell the lecturer during the lecture that I don't understand what you're saying. Could you please repeat that, right? Instead of you raising your hand, you just push a button on a computer software, and the lecturer will get a notification. That was their initial idea. There's a couple of students at MIT that tried to do this and test this at MIT. But then what happened was that to test this, they went to the lecturer, and then they said, "Hi, could you just try this tool out in your mathematics lecture?" And he said, "Yeah, no worries." Just felt like a bit pity for the students, and he said, "I'm going to try it out." And then they sat in behind of the lecture class, like in the class, in behind of all the students, and just watched how are students using this software. But what they realized is that when you're in class, even at MIT, the students are just on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Instagram, and just chatting to different people, going to YouTube, and didn't really pay attention to the class at all. And they realized that, okay, this is a cool tool, and in theory, I would use it myself, but there's no product market fit, because if the students are not going to send that feedback to the lecturer, you don't really have a product. But after pivoting maybe 5 times, ended up on something completely else. But based on the fact that they were capable computer scientists who could code things. So they made a software that now works as a data analytics tool. Something completely different, but using their same capabilities, right? So that's kind of some examples of successful pivoting. and why you should potentially pivot. So it's kind of like said in that statement. Um, if you have other alternatives that you could get better gain of in terms of revenue, in terms of traction, then you might want to pursue those opportunities instead. If you're working on a startup now, but you realize that you might have some other ideas that is maybe more valuable, maybe you should just use the time. Like, you only have so much time and so much money. Maybe you should spend that time on something that's slightly more valuable, especially if you self-realized it. And then you have something called the pivoting equation. It's not really an equation, but it can give you an intuition about how to think about when or why you should pivot. So it says if how well things are working divided by the times of months of full-time effort you put into building this product is less than your excitement than to work on another idea, plus the confidence you have that the other idea might work better, then you should probably pivot. So maybe you could put a number into it and you might get something, but it's just a way to make you think about these stuff. And here are some couple of good reasons for why you should pivot. If you hate working on it, if you hate working on an idea, you just thought it was a cool idea that you read on BBC about NFTs, for example, it's a huge thing now. If you just thought that was a cool idea, but you really hate working on it, then you should probably pivot. Your startup is not growing, that's a good example. If you're not a good fit to be working on this idea, right? There's so many amazing startups you create in AI, in like health tech that this guy did, or virtual reality. But if you're not really capable of building products in that space, then or you don't have a co-founder in that space that is technically capable, then you should probably think twice about working in that space and building such a product, right? And this is quite interesting as well. Let's say you want to create an augmented reality product. So putting things into virtual space through your mobile phone, for example. But you're relying on Apple or Samsung to release AR glasses, which is going to happen, but maybe in 10 years' time, or 20, or maybe next year, we don't know. But you're relying on someone else to create that market for you. And that just creates so much uncertainty for yourself, for your customers, and even for investors. So you should probably pivot to something that's more certain. And if you tried everything to make your ideas grow and it doesn't really work, then you should probably change the idea or find something tangible, like Slack did, for example. And good reasons not to pivot. If you're trying to run away from doing hard work, like that is the worst part about startups. You have an idea, maybe you have some initial interest, but now you need to start cold calling people. Get your product out there, go and sell, knock on doors, right? That's the hard part of startups. Airbnb founders, I talked about it last time. They went down and sold their own like cereal to get money. They made their own pack of cereal and got out, knocked on doors, and tried to sell it just to get funding for the startup. That's the type of work you kind of need to do as a startup founder. But if you're trying to just run away from doing hard work, try to find something easy, then you should probably not pivot. You should just do the work and see if you can get traction. If you're repeatedly changing ideas and kind of giving up on them before launching them, that's a common thing, right? Like, you have so many ideas you want to get done, but you never actually finish like one of them, or you don't really go through with anything, then you should just focus and see if this could go somewhere and not just be all over the place, right? And yeah, this is quite popular as well. I read an article yesterday or saw a YouTube video, especially now with crypto and blockchain and AI, and you're trying to just capitalize on that, then you should probably not just pivot to that unless you're real capable and you understand that I found something truly valuable in that, which many of you guys have that works on NFTs, for example. And why people then take too long to pivot. So why they take too long to change their idea. And this is actually quite interesting. If you have a product that has gotten some initial interest, then you think that, okay, I have product market fit. The people that are actually interested, they're sending emails, they're calling me up and say, hey, I like your product, right? But a little bit of traction is not the same as product market fit. I'll get back to that later, right? That's this guy talked about. If someone actually wants your idea, there will be hundreds of people calling you up every single day and say, hi, I want your product now. If it's just a couple of people interested in, hi, how does it work? I like your design. It's not the same as product market fit, right? And this other thing as well, when you ask people and test with users, it's quite challenging because not everybody would tell you, I don't really think what you're doing is valuable. They would just tell you, if you maybe did this, or if you added this feature, or if you made a design better, maybe I would use it. And that's just people's way of trying to be nice with you. It might be investors, it might be someone else, it might even be your mom and dad, right? You never know. And just being caught up in that is also just why people don't really give up on their ideas. And yeah, of course, like we don't want to admit that we've done something wrong and we spent time and wasted time. But if you realize that yourself, then you should just put your hands down, put your work down, put it beside, try to find something, or like, try to find something else you could work on. Because then you yourself actually have realized it, but you just want to admit it to everyone else, right? But it's for your own best, of course. And then, yeah, if you made something amazing and amazing technology, but you're saying that, but they don't understand it, like technology is amazing, but no one wants to buy it, it's their fault. But if the market doesn't want it, then it's your fault. You haven't really built a technology that's solving a problem. You're just making it because it's fun and because it's cool technology. So that's one of the biggest reasons why startups fail. And of course, the last one becomes so huge today is caught up in all these inspirational sources, which is believe hard enough, things are going to change. But unfortunately, they won't. So just trying to like go behind that the hype we're seeing now as well, because there's a lot of hype regarding startups. This is a cool tweet from Dalton Caldwell. He's a famous partner at this very famous accelerator called the Y Combinator. And he said that, and dangerous in commenting is that when startups have a little bit of traction, just enough that are willing to change their ideas, not enough traction to them to actually know they have product market fit. That's like what he calls the uncanny valley of product market fit. When you're kind of stuck in that rut of having some interest, but it's not really product market fit, you just keep going and keep spending time and think that if I just put more money and more time on it, more people is going to buy it. But if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. You need to put some limits for yourself as well. If you spend a year or two and you haven't really got product market fit, then you should probably do something else. Yeah, and this is really the best way to understand when do I have product market fit. It is when you have it when growing your business is not your biggest problem. It's to keep up with demand. If so many people are calling you that you can't really, you need to hire more people, that's when you have product market fit. And this is the best example. If you have your email, of course, you put it out, you made a cool landing page, you get 3 emails, people are interested in your idea. Oh, this is so cool. You're making this marketplace, you're making this hardware product, you're making this bottle that is self-cleaning, whatever. And you got 3 emails. That's amazing. But this is not product market fit. This is just some people are interested in your idea. Maybe they want to know more. Maybe they're trying to mimic you and create a competitor. You never know, right? And maybe if they even just show some interest, it's just 3 people out of how many that are supposed to be in that market. But if that changes to 800, then you really, really know that you pivoted into something that is quite valuable. There's a famous story about this startup called, or it's not a startup anymore, it's a business. It's called Code Academy. It's a platform to learn how to code. And actually, I think it was 3 days before the day they were gonna present to investors, so what's called a demo day, they pivoted for the 13th time. But within those 3 days, they got 300,000 users. 300,000 users in 3 days. And that's where you really, really know that you have something that is creating real value for people. So that's kind of what these 2 slides is supposed to show. So yeah, that's basically it. Quite short. If you have any questions, let me know. But that's kind of the concept of it. Not that hard. So yeah, thank you.